Matthew. On Friday, we had Richard Dick Dixon on the show, and we were talking about the press conference that we saw earlier in that day, some of the top candidates maybe for the LSU job, and there is one that is a former teammate of all three of ours and somebody that's, obviously had some success at the NFL level as a defensive coordinator, albeit his first year, but, a Tiger through and through. He had the press conference there where he said if you cut him open, he would be a liger, half lion, half tiger. So
Great comment.
Kelvin Sheppard is somebody that a lot of people have thrown around, maybe potentially getting an opportunity to at least interview for the head coaching job
of
the LSU Fighting Tigers. Lay that out for me. Like, what does that look like if it does happen? Like, what would have to be some things that he would have to surround himself with to make sure that everything was taken care of?
Yeah, and I don't think that like you and I are like in a position right now to say who we want to be or who we think is going to be, because nobody really knows. Like, we don't know and we don't know who really is going to be available and who really would want to come and take the job. We're assuming a lot of people would. We're assuming that anybody would. But after our talk with Richard on Friday, I just got to thinking about Kelvin Sheppard and kind of like his timeline as a player, as a coach, kind of the people that we know him very well, right? Because we were teammates with him. We know what kind of guy he is. We know what kind of dude he is. We know the kind of energy that he brings, the dog that is in him, and we also know his football IQ. Everybody else in the world kind of got introduced to this Kelvin Sheppard as a coach. I don't remember how many years ago, but it was on the Hard Knock show where they had the camera inside the meeting room, and he's talking to his linebackers and talking to them rather aggressively and talking to them like a dog, but also like having compassion towards them, like being relatable to them.
Yeah.
Like, it was all the coaches speak that you watched it and you're like, man, that is like as real as it gets. And like the guy just gets it. He's real, and he knows how to communicate his message with an intensity, but also like an understanding. He laid out the expectation to his players. He was intentional about it. And it was a guy that like you're not going to talk back to, and you're not going to be like, no, coach, I saw this. But it's just not that kind of aura that surrounds Kelvin Sheppard. Now, first year coordinator.
Yeah.
But has been doing it at the assistant level, for a good handful of years at a very high level and doing it well. What that looks like for him, like I was intrigued by it because, he is an NFL coach right now. So like it's this whole like wait and see situation, this fear of the unknown that current players might have when the transfer portal opens.
Yeah.
Recruits have that are signing in December 3rd. Like, if you sign someone out of the NFL, there's no hesitation. They can announce, hey, I'm going to be the head coach for so-and-so team. I don't care if it's week 10. I'm going to coach out the rest of the year. Yeah. Then I'm going to go be a head coach. Like, you can let everybody know. It's not this, like, I got to hold my cards, close to my vest and Lane Kiffin situation where it's going to be mid-January. So that part is intriguing to me because there's this big scenario you could play out of your head. Like, well, I know Kelvin Sheppard gets it. He's an LSU guy. Like, he understands, like, the way this thing operates. He knows who Verge is. He knows who Frank Wilson. Like, he could be like, I'm going to coach the rest out. Frank's going to take over. Right now, he's going to handle the recruiting. He's going to be, retained.
Yeah.
Like, all that situation is intriguing to me because I know the type of dude Kelvin Sheppard is. Now, does that mean like he's my first choice? I have no idea. I don't know who my first choice is. I don't have a list right now.
That's why I would love to get in front of like 5 different people that I think can do the job. Right. But I'd want to hear them explain how they would do the job and also why they would want to take the job.
Yep.
That's for sure to me.
Yeah, exactly. Why you want to take the job, what's your vision for it, and everything.
I got to see some authenticity in this one.
That's why Kelvin Sheppard thing intrigues me so much, because he can do that from the NFL level. He can make it known. He can still coach out his whole year, and it might be a line. They might go to, they got a team that could go to the Super Bowl. I think he would maintain a lot of the good coaches. Because there's a lot of good coaches, a lot of good people over in that building right now. I just think there is a scenario that could play out that would be really advantageous for LSU and create electricity with recruits, with the current players. I think that would be a huge home run from that aspect. So the more I think about it and talk through it, the more I like it.
And all right, so let me play devil's advocate, because obviously we're going to be biased in that because Kelvin was our teammate. We saw him work every single day. We've seen him at the NFL level. We've talked to people he's coached. We've talked to people that are currently on that staff that reached out to me, and I didn't ask for it. They reached out to me to kind of tell me how Kelvin's been as a defensive coordinator.
We're fans of his because we're teammates, but he's authentic.
For
he's
sure.
Authentic as hell.
You know where you stand with Shep.
You know where
you always did. You always have. So, okay, but let me play devil's advocate just for this. If it happened, you would get a first-time head coach. You would get somebody that's been in the NFL, not in college football. What are some of the cons of that? And also, what would he have to surround himself with?
Yeah.
Like, what kind – is it an elite offensive staff?
Yep.
Is it almost like Jimbo used to be with us, where Jimbo, we used to say Jimbo was the head coach of the offense.
Yep.
Because Coach Saban was on his field, Muschamp was over there. It was Jimbo on our field, and that was our head coach. You know, because Coach Saban let him coach the offense. Would it be that situation?
Well, so the worry would be Kelvin Sheppard is a first time. He's been a 1-year coordinator. This would be a first-time coaching job. And like, oh, well, first-time coaching. This is LSU. We got all the resources in the world. We can go do this. We can do that. Well, if you know who Kelvin Sheppard is and what he stands for, he is a first-year. He would be a first-year head coach. He has been a defensive coordinator. So what does that mean? You probably don't have to put him in a 10-year contract to start with.
Yeah.
So, and you are LSU. You have all the resources to do that. So surround him with as many resources that it takes to make his first year as a head coach better. Yeah, of course, he's going to have to surround himself with a badass offensive staff.
Yeah,
for sure. Maybe I talked about it last week. A guy that is in charge of game time decisions and special situations, clock management, things like that. That is not unheard of. It might be unheard of because people might think that the head coach is like the end-all be-all when it comes to clock management. But most head coaches have somebody in their ear saying, we got to, if we don't get it here, we got to spike it, or we got to clock it, we got to call timeout. Like, there's a person that is dedicated, and it makes sense, right? Especially if you have a play-calling head coach, whether it's the offense or defense. Like, they're focused all week on the game plan.
Yeah.
There's somebody dedicated to clock management and game management throughout the game. Like, it makes sense that you have one person dedicated to that. Right. So if you don't already, hire that person. Like, there are pieces
even a former head coach at some level that is out of the game, and you want to make him an analyst.
So if you got a guy that loves LSU, is genuine, knows how to speak to a group of men, get the best out of them, and you got a guy that you feel that can right the ship, steady the ship right now in some tumultuous waters, that can hold on to your good people that are in that building that deserve to be there.
Yeah.
You go hold on to recruits, hold on to current players, and can announce that he's coming like ASAP. You find the other people. I don't care, and you can probably get him at. I don't want to say discounted rate because that is belittling towards him.
Right.
But like a guy that he's not, and it's like you don't have to get into contract negotiations like you would with a Lane Kiffin. You got that situation playing out. I like every piece of that puzzle that we just talked about.
Yeah.
There's not. I haven't found the negative in all that.
Now, and look, I'll say this too. Like,
Andy's been with Dan Campbell for a handful of years. He made the Lions relevant.
Exactly. Like the Lions
with what he
never
brought
done
to
anything.
the table.
Yes, and all those people that when he had his press conference, he's like, "We're going to bite kneecaps," and they were here on this station. I was like, "Why do y'all hate that?" That man is different. That man is showing you that he's going to do whatever it takes for the Detroit Lions to be relevant. They had never been relevant. They have done things under Dan Campbell they've never done in franchise history, and they're one of the oldest franchises, okay, because the game has changed. You don't have to have the things that have always been there to be a successful head coach. I'm not saying it can't work that way, but if you take a look at how the game has changed in the NFL and in college football, it's a different coach that you're looking for. And regardless of what their resume says, because James Franklin's got a great resume, Brian Kelly's got a great resume, Dabo Swinney right now has a great resume, but the games past, like Dabo, like for what he's done and how he's always done it, you can't do it those ways anymore and expect to be elite. You just can't. They just lost another game to Duke. He just got fined $10,000 for complaining about the officials, okay? It's down bad right now at that place. But the resume is incredible. You can't deny the resume. College football isn't like just resume-based anymore. You have to have a connection to the players like you've never had before. You got to have a connection to the recruits like you've never had before. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything. Like you can't just get by on talent alone anymore because, well, the talent has dispersed amongst a lot of different teams now. You don't hoard talent like you once did. You can't. You can't do that anymore. Okay? So you have to coach. You've got to be in the building. You have to grind like you're a GA when you're the head coach now. It has to be that type of situation. And the thing is, not everybody's built for that anymore. So the guys that have done it their way for 20, 30 years and created an incredible resume. It's not that they're bad football coaches. They're good football coaches. But the way that they've always done it isn't working anymore, and they're reluctant to give themselves over to the way that it works now. So when you hear a name that's never been a head coach, I understand that. I get why you would be like, are we sure? But when the game has changed as much as it has, you have to take a look at the totality of the situation and understand there's things now that a head coach has to have that he didn't necessarily have to have before. So for me, you just had the resume. You just had the guy that I think we all felt like was going to be a home run. You had the guy that if you could go out there and handpick it 5 years ago, he'd have been on the short list. But now, you don't look for that guy necessarily anymore. You got to look for something a little bit different. I think some of the people we're talking about, like a Kelvin Sheppard, is a little bit different.
One thing's clear, and there's one objective for this new head coach, whoever it is. And we just talked about Kelvin Sheppard, and we know he could do this. Now, how he operates as a head coach, who knows? Nobody knows because he's never done it. But you could surround him. You talk about LSU has all the resources to do whatever. Verge just said Friday's press conference that they asked him about money. They asked him about budget. He said, my job is to find the best coach. Well, one objective is clear. As you have to reset the standard here at LSU. Back to what the standard is that we all expect from a fan base, as LSU fans, as former players, as people here on this radio station. Anybody listen, the standard has to be reset. And like Jake just said, we just fired a guy that was hired based on resume. So you got to look a little bit deeper. It's a little bit different hiring process than it always has been. So whatever it is, whoever comes in here has to absolutely go back and reset the standard of LSU football.